And welcome back to another episode of MPBF Radio, 33.3, The Golf Tee. I've got Double D with me, and the Braves have sustained injuries the first half of the season. We've got the Freddie Freeman, Jason Gurley, the Johnson & Johnson injuries. But given all that, given the expectations, Double D, how would you assess the first half of the Brave season?
Well, I would have to say, for me personally, I know a lot of people would say, well, we've probably been a little bit on par with what we've expected or maybe even overperformed. In my personal opinion, I think we've actually underperformed given that I think the pieces that John Hart brought in, we got a lot of contact hitters and we have a couple of power hitters. Obviously, Nick Markakis has not hit any home runs yet like he's capable of doing, and Freddie Freeman along with Kelly Johnson and Cameron Maben are the main power hitters, but Cameron Maben and Kelly Johnson are not necessarily home run hitters. But we have a lot of contact hitters, and so with our pitching, that was supposed to be our strong suit. I felt that we could have a very consistent, strong season. So, in my opinion, I think we've actually underperformed in different aspects. So.
Braves fans, I would imagine, would agree with you. You can see the potential is there. They just haven't capitalized when the moments have been there. They seem like they can take one more step. And I think Braves country would agree with you. Braves country has expressed much frustration with Fredi Gonzalez. Double D, what would be something up at the top of the list, his frustrations, what are something he needs to necessarily fix? What can he do better?
I would say he needs to be more consistent with his decision making as far as when to pull out a starting pitcher, when to keep him in longer instead of pulling him too early, and making certain relief pitching selections as far as what would be the best matchup in this situation or that situation that can enable the team to perform at its highest peak and at its highest level to give us the best chance of succeeding and getting wins back to back, so on and so forth.
Well, we've got not necessarily the home stretch of the baseball season, and it's not even necessarily the second half of the season, but that's what we call it. So we're going to go with that. We've got the second half of the season. Double D, what can we look forward to in the second half? And maybe more specifically, are we going to have one of these young, talented pitchers at the back end of the rotation? It's been a revolving door back there. Are we going to have one of these young talented pitchers nail down a spot on the back of the rotation? What can we expect in the second half of the season?
Well, to answer your second question, I feel strongly that with Williams Perez's return, that should be happening very soon. He's 4-0. He's got a very low ERA, and he doesn't have strikeout type stuff, but he's got good movement on his pitches and a lot of ground balls, and he's just a really good competitor out there. So I think he's got a very good chance of being one of the bottom end of the rotation starters that can lock a spot down for himself and for the Braves. As far as what to expect for the second half, if we can have a healthy Freddie Freeman, I know we're not sure when or if he's going to be able to come back from his wrist injury, which is very confusing in my mind, how long it's taken for him to heal up from that. But if we can get a healthy Freddie Freeman and make a couple of moves to maybe get another power bat and maybe another starter in a rotation, as well as a relief pitcher or two, I think we can have a solid second half of the season. Whether or not we can make the playoffs, I don't know. But, with all the youth and all the moves that John Hart has made to get younger, more speed, and all that kind of stuff, I'm still very excited about this team moving forward, whether or not we make the playoffs.
I somewhat agree with that. I'm not necessarily sure we need another power bat. When Freddie Freeman comes back from his injury, I think our lineup should have what it takes. And isn't it kind of funny the way baseball works? We gave away a bunch of power bats to get all this young pitching, and now we're like, let's go get a power bat. We've got some young pitching. It's just kind of funny how baseball works sometimes. And it all depends on how Fredi Gonzalez uses Freddie Freeman when he comes back and uses. I mean, it could be up to him to see how we put this lineup together and use some of that power that we have. But I think the key to the second half of the season is going to be locking up the back end of the rotation, getting starters in there, and getting them to improve and perform. Especially Julio Teheran, Alex Wood. We know those guys can pitch better. We've seen it. And with that, this has been another episode of MPBF Radio, brought to you by MPBF Radio. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook at Most Passionate Braves Fans, or email the show, mpbf.wp@gmail.com. We'll see you next time, MPBF Radio.